Welcome to devlog number 1 of Clandestine. Let me just start off and say, I personally think there aren't enough good horror games. None that are actually terrifying. My example of a good horror game would definitely be Outlast. There is a great fear when you can feel and hear the enemy coming towards you, knowing he can actually do something to you and you have nothing to do except hide. It's the same thing that makes Alien Isolation so great. And whatever happened to PT? Wouldn't that have been an amazing game? There are especially a very small amount of multiplayer horror games, but the concept always seems to work great, like Dead by Daylight or Phasmophobia.
Oh, the kitchen! Hey, dude! Forget ghost hunting. Let's just eat all the food here.
And it makes sense why they're so successful, and sometimes even more successful than single-player horror games. Not many people want to play a horror game by themselves. I'm working on a game called Clandestine. It's a game based on game modes like Juggernaut. I have so many inspirations for this game, including Crisis for its UI,
Watch my back.
the new Modern Warfare for its amazing gun models and animations,
Sleeps with this weapon nonstop. Handle it with extreme confidence.
and Killing Floor 2 for its great gunplay. My main inspiration is an old game called The Hidden. You know, the game with Sea Nanners and Morgan Freeman.
I can smell you. I'm creeping around right now. You just can't see me, as I've evolved invisibility.
It's a pretty simple concept, but would easily be my dream game if someone did it right. You have one player as the Hidden. He's invisible, but limited to only using a knife for his victims, while everyone else has guns and different gear to try and locate and kill the Hidden.
Oh, you fucking...
Swear to God!
Oh, no, not today, Sean.
I think it was quite popular around that time, but there weren't a huge amount of PC gamers playing small titles that were more difficult to obtain, like just going on Steam and clicking install. Unfortunately, the servers are always empty, and it seems no one even knows the game exists anymore. There seems to be a game mode on Gary's mod, but it isn't as polished as I would want the game to be. Now, I'm not much of a developer. I didn't go to school for developing video games. I don't really know too much. This is mostly just a side hobby that I would love to eventually have as a career. I learned Photoshop a long time ago just by messing around with it. And the best way I've learned coding and just overall using Unity is from the site Udemy. You pay for a course and you get it. The course includes tons of information and quizzes you based on what you've learned. It is way cheaper than college and may be a very good alternative. Of course, I have no idea if the courses in Udemy teach you to the same degree as game dev in college would. But if I didn't buy a course, I'd be so behind on what I know now. I think Udemy is well worth whatever you pay for the course. Usually you can find great tutorials for like $10 and they're full of hours and hours of footage. I worked on this game lots last year and got the basic movement down with a little help from Danny Tutorials, including moving, jumping, and sliding. I then implemented a few different key features, leaping and sticking. Leaping tosses you into the air at the direction you're looking. Think of a grenade, but you're throwing yourself. Sticking allows you to scale and cling to surfaces. At first, sticking was working off the player collider, but this definitely did not work. When you try to leave from a wall, your collider constantly touches the wall, making you stick again. I added a hitbox in front of the player that worked as a trigger to detect when it's touching a world object that is tagged as stickable. I got some temporary hand models from the asset store and included a knife model in the idle pose. Everything was looking okay, and then my Unity project somehow freaked out from upgrading to Unity's new HDRP. definitely back up before upgrading. I then fell into the trap thinking I could never finish this project and really had no idea what I was doing with C#, designing, 3D modeling, or really anything. A year later, I motivated myself to get back at it. I started a new project and brought in my scripts that were still scavengeable. I forgot mostly what I have done, and this is why it's really important to put notes in your scripts. Lesson learned. I got my leaping and sticking operational and was really happy with how it was working. I was afraid of this big bug where if you held the leap button, you would slide on the ground forever. The main reason it exists is when you leap, it disables counter movement. Knowing the stuff I know now, I may go back and fix it. But as a temporary fix, I decided to add it as a feature. After all, I can add whatever I want to this game. I added sound effects of me literally grinding a knife on my kitchen counter. It may not be perfect, but I think it really works for now. After I got that figured out, I felt a huge relief and I could finally start working on other parts of the game. I wanted a pickup system that would be really fun to mess around with and that relied on physics. I tried to find stuff online, but nobody else's work was giving me what I was looking for. I found a great example on Reddit from simple_ghost of almost exactly what I wanted. Then I saw a post from Danny on the pickup system he's implementing in his game. Simple_ghost explained how his pickup system worked for me, and mine is sorta close to what he was explaining. I haven't done too much coding, so this was my first big script that I was going to work on completely by myself, and was super proud of how it came out, and still am with every change I do to it. Unity's APIs are literally amazing and help so much. I guess that's the sole reason they exist. So now you can pick up something from a set reach distance, which by the way, check out my inspector with all of the lovely options. You can then scroll with your mouse to move it further from you or closer to you. This works really good for objects like doors as well. Doors have multiple ways of opening them, but this has to be my favorite. I found the objects kind of fly everywhere if you move too fast, so I added if you left click while holding, you can tighten your grip. Releasing left click then throws the object forward, which also works for doors. It's a little bit buggy with doors, but I might work on that in the future. I found a character on the asset store that was completely rigged for testing purposes. I gave him some hitboxes and character joints, making him a ragdoll, and gave him the tag body. So on my script, when you pick up an item, it checks to see if it's a body part, and if it is, it will create a collider surrounding the object. You can then bring it close to a world object like this cube, and press E to pin the body to the world object. You can do this with multiple body parts to create interesting scenes for your foes. I then worked on the sticking feature a lot more, and it's a little more fluent. It works a little bit differently, so instead of freezing the character's position, it adds a spring joint to the contact point, so you don't just freeze instantly on the wall. This also allows you to peek around the edges of walls while sticking. I want you to be able to peek up and down as well when you're pressing W and S, but right now it doesn't quite work that way. Instead of leaping directly up if you don't make it to the top of a world object, you can now jump up the wall to get to the top. I have lots to work on, including the actual game part, but I figured movement for the creature is a very important aspect of the game, and if it's not done right, I wouldn't want to continue with this project as much. This has been my first devlog on Clandestine, and I hope you've enjoyed it. It would be awesome if you could like this video if you enjoyed it and want to see more. Also leave me comments on what I could change or implement in Clandestine. In my second devlog, I hope to either have human movement and guns done, or just the basics of the game mode. Thanks for listening to my devlog. Goodbye.